You know, it's you have a choice. It's cold in New Jersey. It's not so bad in Florida. It's pretty nice right now. Now we'll go to questions. Let's start with Senator Moody.
Thank you, Chairman Scott. And I think Florida is experiencing a massive influx at the moment. He continues to be a cheerleader, having been the former governor and contributing so much to its success now and why so many people want to move there. But we will always welcome others. In fact, we are known as the Sunshine State, but we're also known as the Silver State for good reason. Almost a quarter of our population is considered seniors, and that is why on this small committee, you have the two Florida senators both participating and engaging on these very important issues. They affect so many of Floridians, and we think it's important. And we welcome a Floridian with us today. We're so glad to have you, so proud of you and your career, but not just what you accomplished on the field, but certainly what you have done for your community since. Such a benefit to the state of Florida and those that call Florida home. So thank you for being with us. Aging in place is so very important, and we know that the Older Americans Act in many ways helps with stability and meaningful assistance to families who are often stretched thin by caregiving responsibilities. And I think a hearing like this is so very important. So I thank Chairman Scott and Ranking Member Gillibrand for convening this hearing, focusing on specific programs, yes, but also overall on the Older Americans Act and how it provides critical support to seniors and their families. It also helps build community for a growing number of seniors in America who are living alone. Some of the statistics, according to the National Council on Aging, show that 28% of adults 65 and older live alone. And as we approach the end of the year, we're reminded that many seniors will face this holiday season in isolation. And so we want to ensure that the Older American Act continues to offer programs that help older adults strengthen their connections and build supportive communities, so this doesn't have to be the case. With that said, I have a few questions for our witnesses, and certainly I wanted to, listening to your testimony, I'm kind of going to go off. I planned some subjects I wanted to talk about, but I was really interested in your testimony, Mr. Resendez. You were talking about how there's kind of a flop of where we should be prioritizing, where we're focusing our resources. Right now, I believe you have to have a waiver to stay at home. And you were commenting on some proposed legislation, specifically by Senator Scott, regarding a tax credit. Can you tell us, would any of those concerns be addressed by either the proposed legislation, and if not, what would you recommend for Congress to address to kind of right-size that approach?
Absolutely. One of the key things to your question around Senator Scott's legislation is the immense financial strain that family caregivers face. Nearly 50% of family caregivers report experiencing at least one negative financial impact due to caregiving. Out-of-pocket costs, conservatively, due to caregiving is around $7,000 a year. And a lot of those expenses are not tax deductible. So anything we can do for the tax code to better recognize the contributions and expenses associated with caregiving can help to alleviate some of those financial strains that family caregivers face. And then on the imbalance, what we see is an imbalance in between home and community-based spending at the state level and spending on institutional care. So there are examples where states are making efforts to set targets for rebalancing dollars towards more or less costly home-based care versus institutional care. So there are options to explore to rebalance that spending at the state level.
And I know there are many of us that are pushing to re-up the Older Americans Act. I've co-sponsored that. I know both our ranking member and our chairman are pushing for that. Are there specific things within that legislation that would address that imbalance?
The Older Americans Act, as Allison highlighted, greatly complements home and community-based services. So fully funding and reauthorizing the Older Americans Act, increasing funding for the Older Americans Act. One of the things that we see in our data is between 2015 and 25, we've seen a nearly 50% increase in the number of family care. It's 20 million more family
And
caregivers.
what was that span that you were saying that increased by
10 years.
10 years.
10 years, 20 million more caregivers in 10 years, yet funding for the Older Americans Act and the National Family Caregiver Support Program specifically has remained relatively the same. So the demand has increased significantly.
But in your testimony, though, you mentioned that you believe if we took away this, the incentives that would push people into institutional care as opposed to at-home caregiving, that you believe we might even be able to save money by doing that, because I think you said, and I could be wrong, that it's twice as costly to care for someone in an institution setting versus being at home. So with this rise in demand, are you saying that we could still save money per person if we were to shift those resources to in-home caregiving?
Absolutely. Helping folks provide care in their homes for longer enables us to save on things like the cost of institutionalized care, the cost of ER visits. So when we support people providing care in the home, we can save money over the long term. We've seen that within the Older Americans Act, for example. One of the things that we've seen from research for Older Americans Act programs like the National Family Caregiver Support Program and Respite is that family caregivers report that when they have that support, they can provide care for longer durations.
So we may be able to mitigate the increased costs associated with the increased demand, 50% more in a decade, by shifting that to more in-home care.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chairman.